Hey guys, tonight we are wandering quietly along the banks of the Nile, the air thick with warm mist and the scent of wet clay. Papyrus boats drift lazily under a pink-tinged sky, and the only thing glinting brighter than the gold on a pharaoh's headdress is, believe it or not, a set of surprisingly straight teeth. You pass by rows of statues, their serene faces locked in eternal, oddly perfect smiles. Except when you look closer, you spot that even the mighty Sphinx is sporting a bit of an overbite. That, or maybe the wind just wore down its jaw. Now, before you get too comfortable imagining yourself as ancient Egyptian royalty, reality check. If you actually lived here, you probably would not survive your first toothache unless you had some serious dental luck or knew the right priest. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know where you are listening from and what time it is right now, because I am always amazed how far these sleepy journeys travel. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge along in a world where smiles are more than just a social currency. They are a statement of health, luck, even divinity. Here in the age of the pharaohs, Egyptians are obsessed with appearances, and a gleaming set of teeth can almost be a status symbol. If you squint at a temple mural, you notice the gods always get drawn with perfect teeth. Maybe a bit unfair, but hey, when you are immortal, you probably have time for decent dental care. You wander through a bustling marketplace, feeling grainy sand under your sandals, and every merchant is flashing a toothy grin. There is a reason the ancient Egyptians were one of the first cultures to truly care about dental beauty. Maybe because they ate a diet that was, to be honest, not exactly gentle on their molars. There is bread everywhere, loaves packed with bits of sand and grit from hand-ground flour. Every bite, a little exfoliating treatment for your gums. Historians still argue whether these dietary choices were intentional or just the side effect of living in a giant sandbox, but either way, your teeth would have gotten a serious workout. By the time you hit your mid-20s, your molars would be flatter than the nearby desert dunes. Yet, despite all this, Egyptians still went out of their way to keep their teeth looking as straight and white as possible. You slide past an open-air bakery, catching the earthy aroma of yeast, and notice an old man laughing with his grandchildren. His teeth, while a little worn down, are surprisingly even. Is it luck, or something more deliberate? That is the question. There is a quirky detail you cannot miss. Egyptians painted portraits and carved statues with straight teeth, not just for realism, but to show off what they wished for: immaculate, healthy smiles. They knew the power of symbolism, maybe even a little wishful thinking. A lot of the methods you are about to discover were surprisingly gentle, more about slow patience than high-tech interventions. Forget images of yanking teeth with rusty tools. Egyptians favored subtle hands-on corrections, sometimes so slow and incremental that you might actually fall asleep just listening to how they did it. One thing is certain, a crooked smile did not mean a doomed afterlife, but it might have raised some eyebrows at the palace. Even now, in the present tense, you feel the tension slide off your jaw as you imagine what it must have been like to be an artisan in Thebes, quietly practicing your own version of braces with a strand of gold. Mainstream fact: the Egyptians were obsessed with dental health, and even developed early versions of dental prosthetics. Quirky tidbit: some tombs have been found with teeth still lashed together with gold wire, a sort of ancient retainer, if you want to picture that. Historians still argue whether these were applied before or after death, just for show or for actual function. But tonight in this lazy moonlit stroll, you can imagine it all as softly as you need. And so you sink into the rhythm of the Nile, with a sleepy smile of your own, ready to learn how ancient Egyptians fixed crooked teeth, gently. The sky fades from pink to deep indigo, as you wind your way through a sleepy Egyptian village, the huts clustered close for comfort. In every shadowed doorway, there is a family laughing over dinner, breaking bread that crunches in a way that makes your jaw ache just listening. If you press your tongue to your teeth, you wonder, would your own smile survive this menu? Because here is something almost everyone faced: crooked, chipped, or even outright missing teeth, all thanks to those little gritty bits hiding in every bite. You sit cross-legged beside the fire, absently chewing a date while eavesdropping on the day's complaints. Old stories, sure, but always the same. My son cannot chew his figs, or my mother's teeth are drifting apart. Sometimes you get a glimpse of a child, tugging self-consciously at their upper lip to hide a wayward canine. Crooked teeth are everywhere, and they are not just a beauty problem. They make eating tricky, sometimes even painful. Imagine trying to gnaw on dried fish with a front tooth that has twisted sideways. Not exactly elegant. Even among the tombs of kings, you find the telltale signs: worn down enamel, crowded incisors, teeth forced out of line by years of chewing on rough food. Archaeologists, working under the hot sun, gently clean a mummy's jaw and see it for themselves. The dental problems of ancient Egypt read like a roll call of modern woes: tooth decay, cavities, abscesses, overcrowding, crookedness. And here is a mainstream fact for you: these were not just minor annoyances. For some, dental pain was constant background noise, the kind you do not talk about but never quite escape. Sometimes, even the mighty pharaoh himself would have traded his gold crown for a day without an aching molar. But of course, you are not all doom and gloom here. There is always a quirky side. Egyptians had a habit of attributing toothaches to little invisible demons, worms that burrowed into the enamel and caused throbbing pain. You picture yourself groggy and half awake, blaming a bad dream on a mischievous toothworm instead of that sesame bread you scarfed down at midnight. Historians still debate whether these wormy theories came from direct observation, some odd sensation, or just the human urge to explain pain with something you can picture. You dip your fingers in cool water from a clay jug, feeling the gentle rush of the Nile echo through you. It is strangely soothing, knowing that dental anxiety is ancient. Imagine kids squirming away from their mother's attempts at cleaning their teeth with a fibrous stick dipped in honey, or adults complaining to their neighbors about that one stubborn incisor. Tooth troubles, in other words, are universal. Nobody gets a free pass, not even in the afterlife. If you have ever panicked about your own smile in a yearbook photo, you are in good company. So tonight, as you listen, you lean into this shared humanity. Everyone, peasants and priests, fishermen and pharaohs, worries about their teeth. There is a kind of comfort in that. You let your shoulders drop, breathing in the soft night air, and imagine what it feels like to accept crookedness as part of life, but still secretly hope for a better smile. But that is where the Egyptian ingenuity kicks in. They did not just resign themselves to fate. Instead, they got creative and gentle about trying to nudge those wayward teeth back in line. Sometimes they tried simple solutions, like shifting their diet to softer foods during tooth pain, or using the stem of a reed to poke away debris. Other times, the solutions got a little weirder, like placing a mash of lentils and herbs on the gums, believing it would persuade a crooked tooth to find its way home. You cannot help but chuckle, picturing a wise old grandmother insisting you sleep with a garlic clove tucked against your gum, just in case. That mix of practicality and wishful thinking. Very Egyptian. Historians still argue whether these makeshift fixes were really effective, or just family tradition. But you get the sense it was less about instant results, more about the slow, gentle belief that, with enough time, even the most stubborn tooth could be coaxed back into place. Tonight, drifting with the current of the Nile, you let these small worries fade. Crooked teeth, ancient or modern, are just another reason to smile a little softer. After all, the sun will rise on the Nile tomorrow, and the bread, gritty or not, will be waiting. You leave the laughter behind, and slip down a narrow alley where the scent of incense and roasted garlic dances on the warm night air. In the hush of a reed-thatched workshop, you find the quiet heart of Egyptian dental care. No bustling hospitals or white coats here, just gentle hands, steady nerves, and a surprising cast of characters ready to poke around your mouth with a mixture of reverence and patience. If you lived in ancient Egypt, you would not just visit a dentist. Instead, you would turn to a healer, a scribe priest, a magician, maybe even the family's most trusted elder, someone whose role blurred the lines between physician, spiritual advisor, and amateur orthodontist. Imagine trying to fix your friend's snaggle tooth while reciting prayers to Hathor, goddess of joy, and sneaking in a little homespun magic for good measure. You find yourself reclining on a woven mat, nervous but oddly soothed by the gentle clinking of beads and the low chant of an ancient melody. Maybe your dentist is a bearded priest with ink-stained fingers, or a midwife known for her herbal wisdom and a gift for calming anxious children. Mainstream fact: ancient Egyptian medicine was more advanced than you might guess, with carefully documented procedures, a good understanding of herbal remedies, and even a grasp of basic dental surgery. Archaeologists have unearthed tools, bronze tweezers, small chisels, and delicate needles that would not look entirely out of place in a modern dental kit, though you might hope for a bit more sterilization. You lie back and feel the soft brush of a linen cloth against your cheek as your healer examines your crooked tooth, humming quietly, as if the sound alone could ease your nerves. Yet there is always a quirky detail that sneaks in. Some Egyptian healers were rumored to calm their patients by softly stroking their temples with reeds dipped in scented oil, or murmuring stories about the god's own dental mishaps. Imagine your dentist today, trying that. Now as I floss, let me tell you about how Horus chipped a fang in a chariot race. Historians still argue whether these rituals were pure superstition, or if in a world without anesthetic, anything that soothed the patient was fair game. You feel the healer's hands working with deliberate slowness, never rushing, always pausing for a quiet word or a little joke to lighten the mood. There is a special kind of patience here, one that prizes the process as much as the result. Instead of pulling and yanking, many of these treatments involve coaxing, slowly massaging the gums, gently tapping teeth into line, using small splints or bindings to encourage wayward molars to settle down over weeks or months. It is almost meditative, this slow approach. You can sense the wisdom in the way the healer works, letting time do the heavy lifting. You remember the stories about ancient Egyptian scribes. Their steady hands and calm voices made them the perfect dental helpers, and maybe their soft ink-stained fingertips were just the thing to relax a fidgety patient. A fringe tidbit surfaces. Some say there were special tooth priests who only worked on the nobility, their tools passed down through generations. Others claim that the most talented practitioners were women, midwives who knew the secrets of herbs and nerves, able to soothe a screaming child, or a panicking adult with nothing more than a song and a gentle touch. Historians, predictably, still debate how widespread this gentle tradition was, or whether it was reserved for the wealthy while the poor made do with hope and home remedies. In the dim lamplight, you watch as a reed mat gets unrolled, and a handful of tiny mysterious tools laid out in a neat row. Maybe you flinch as the healer approaches, but you notice their eyes crinkle in a kind smile. There is no sense of rush, just an easy rhythm that makes the whole ordeal feel less like a procedure, and more like a shared secret. Your healer's voice is a soft hush, promising that even the most stubborn tooth can be coaxed gently back in line. By now the sound of distant frogs blends with the healer's slow chant. You are reminded that patience was more than a virtue here, it was a way of life. If you keep your mind open and your jaw relaxed, you might just float right out of your own worries, letting the gentle hands of ancient Egypt guide your smile, one patient nudge at a time. You shift on your mat, the scent of crushed mint drifting from a nearby oil lamp, and soon realized that in ancient Egypt, a trip to the healer was never just about science. It was an experience woven with layers of ritual and meaning, equal parts medicine and magic. If you picture yourself waiting for your crooked tooth to be examined, you do not just get a clinical assessment. Instead, you are drawn into a little ceremony, sometimes earnest, sometimes cheeky, always infused with that quiet Egyptian flair for blending the spiritual with the practical. You notice your healer, priestly or not, preparing the space with a few flicks of a perfumed fan and a whispered prayer to Tarot, the hippo goddess, who guards against all things nasty, bad dreams, toothaches, and occasionally overcooked onions. You are encouraged to rinse your mouth with water from a special vessel, said to be blessed at the temple, though you quietly suspect it is just the cleanest they could find. There is a soothing rhythm to these small gestures, the soft ring of a bronze bell, the cool touch of a lapis lazuli bead against your wrist. Mainstream fact. Ritual was deeply woven into Egyptian healing, a way of calming nerves, setting intentions, and maybe, just maybe, courting the favor of the gods. Yet there are rituals that drift far from solemn. Someone offers you a bite of sweetened bread, for courage they say, even though it is exactly what chipped your tooth in the first place. A palm reader comes by, joking that a strong fate line means straight teeth. Historians would like a word with him, but tonight he gets a laugh. Sometimes a healer mutters, half-jokingly, "If the ibis walks past your house 3 times today, you are due for a toothache." Fringe, maybe, but it works. Anything to lighten the mood when someone is staring at your crooked canine with a bronze pick in hand. The healer gets down to business, but not without more magic. You close your eyes as they paint a tiny hieroglyphic on your palm, promising that the symbol for order will encourage your teeth to align themselves. Historians still argue whether such talismans and prayers were believed to have real power, or if they were simply ancient Egypt's answer to the modern stress ball. Either way, you feel a soft hush settle over you, the outside world fading into the background hum of cicadas. The prayer is gentle, not thunderous, a murmur to keep your heart steady as the healer probes around. They chant a phrase you do not quite catch, something about keeping the crocodile from your mouth. You crack an eye open, picturing a toothy reptile lurking by your tongue, and almost laugh. That apparently was one of the oldest spells banishing the crocodile of pain from the gums. Ancient Egyptians had an entire catalogue of incantations for dental woes, some so odd you wonder if the scribe just got bored and started rhyming nonsense for fun. One involves reciting a line about Horus biting back the darkness while rubbing your jaw with barley paste. You roll with it, if only because your options are limited. Then there is the quiet work of the hands, pressing, tapping, massaging with a paste of cumin and goose fat, sometimes with fingers, sometimes with a slender stick. The sensation is more weird than painful. You half expect it to do nothing, but your jaw actually starts to loosen, as if the tension is being sung away. Historians still argue whether these rituals were all in the patient's mind, or whether the repetitive gentle motions really did help. Maybe it is both, the power of suggestion, plus a little hands-on care. Before you know it, you are drowsy, caught between the earthy aroma of the incense and the comforting drone of prayers. A final quirky detail. Sometimes the patient was encouraged to bite down on a little clay figurine. Supposedly the tooth spirit would transfer into the doll, and your smile would straighten itself out over time. Would your dentist try that today? Maybe not, but in the dark quiet of ancient Egypt, it feels oddly logical. Tonight, as you melt into the shadows, you realize that magic and medicine, at least here, are just 2 ways of calming the heart. You give in to the hush, letting the rituals work their slow, gentle spell. The ritual lingers in the air as you move deeper into the world of Egyptian healing, where knowledge is passed from scribe to scribe,
pressed carefully into papyrus scrolls that crinkle softly as they are unrolled. In the flickering lamplight, your healer's apprentice studies the delicate script, lips moving in a silent echo of the old language. Tonight you are about to discover what the papyrus prescribes for crooked teeth, a formula that is equal parts science, patience, and gentle optimism. You lean closer, half curious, half sleepy, and catch a glimpse of the famous Immerse papyrus, its weathered edges flaking like a well-loved recipe book. Mainstream fact: this is one of the oldest surviving medical texts on Earth, filled with hundreds of remedies for every ache and ailment, including quite a few for troublesome teeth. You would expect harshness, but the prescriptions for dental care are surprisingly soft. Most involve slow, persistent treatments meant to nudge, not force, a tooth into line. One method suggests grinding up a paste of cumin, incense and onions, 3 things you never wanted on your breath all at once, and gently massaging it into the gums. Another recommends a rinse of beer and celery, swished in the mouth while reciting a line about bringing order to the house of the teeth. It sounds like a dinner party gone sideways, but you can see the logic. Onions are antiseptic, cumin soothes inflammation, and beer, well, it relaxes the patient, at the very least. Historians still argue whether the celery rinse actually helped, or if it was just the Egyptian equivalent of swishing and hoping for the best. You watch as your healer selects a slender reed and dips it into a gentle herbal blend, brushing it across your crooked tooth. The taste is sharp, but not unpleasant, like biting into a garden after rain. Every stroke is slow, deliberate, with the hope that regular repetition will persuade the wayward tooth to find its neighbors. You hear a story from the apprentice. Some say that if you whispered your worries to a lotus flower before bed, your teeth would be straighter in the morning. Quirky, absolutely. But after a few weeks of mouth massages and herbal pastes, you are almost willing to try anything. The prescriptions grow stranger as you listen. For stubborn cases, the scrolls advise binding a soft linen thread around the tooth and anchoring it to a nearby straighter neighbor. The tension is gentle, just enough to remind the tooth where it is supposed to be, but never so much that it would cause pain. You drift in and out of the story, wondering if you would have had the patience. Some Egyptians wore these delicate bindings for weeks or even months, quietly hopeful that their smiles would change over time. You cannot help but smirk at another recipe. Mash lentils and honey into a paste, apply to gums, and do not speak until sunrise. You imagine using this as an excuse for a quiet morning, avoiding the neighbor who always wants to gossip before you have even had breakfast. Historians, always skeptical, still debate whether these slow, gentle practices worked in the long run, or if the improvement was mostly in the mind, a soothing ritual for anxious hearts. There is something comforting about how long the Egyptians were willing to wait. In a world where nothing moves quickly, not the river, not the seasons, not even the slow arc of a crescent moon, teeth are just another thing you learn to nudge gently, day after day. No one expects miracles overnight. Instead, you trust in the quiet wisdom of repetition, the slow transformation of something crooked into something almost straight. You yawn, feeling the gentle pull of sleep, and decide that if you were living in ancient Egypt, you might have liked these sleepy, stubborn rituals after all. There is a softness in the way problems are handled here, a sense that every ache, every crooked tooth, is just a little puzzle waiting for a patient solution.
The candle gutters as you watch your healer unravel a coil of gold wire, the soft glow catching on every twist. Tonight you are getting the VIP treatment, Egyptian style. If your crooked tooth needs something more ambitious than herbs and hope, out come the tools for a slow, delicate bit of ancient orthodontics. It is not a scene of frantic repairs or painful pulling. Instead, the whole process is almost soothing in its slowness, like weaving a tiny golden bracelet for your smile. Mainstream fact: Egyptians were among the first in human history to use metal wire to stabilize and even gently straighten teeth. Archaeologists have uncovered mummies whose molars are still lashed together with thin gold bands, a finding so remarkable it makes you rethink what you thought you knew about ancient dentistry. As you recline, mouth slightly open, you realize this was never about flashy technology. It was about steady hands and an even steadier sense of patience. Your healer hums softly, snipping a piece of gold wire and warming it between her fingers until it is pliable as a thread. The air is warm, but her touch is cooler than you expect, careful not to startle. She threads the wire behind your crooked incisor, looping it gently around a neighbor. The sensation is more strange than painful, a bit like wearing jewelry where you never planned to. The healer does not rush. Each twist is tested, adjusted, then pressed into place, sometimes padded with a soft scrap of linen so nothing digs too deep into the gum. Here is the quirky part. Egyptians did not think of this as just a fix, but almost a kind of art. Your golden wire was a status symbol as well as a practical solution, something to show off if you ever happened to smile at a feast. Historians still argue whether these wires were applied to the living for long-term straightening, or more as a way to preserve an orderly smile in death. Some mummies show evidence of wires placed after death, but others bear signs of healing, suggesting that people really did walk around with glittering grins and a hope for straighter teeth. You listen as the healer explains in a tone both amused and proud that gold was not just for jewelry or the gods, it was soft enough to bend, did not rust, and was easy to clean. A practical choice, though it also let you feel a little fancy while you waited for results. Occasionally your healer makes a sleepy joke about how pharaohs with braces could probably pick up the temple's radio broadcasts. You snort, careful not to move your mouth too much. Every adjustment is followed by a soothing mouth rinse, maybe something herbal, maybe a dash of honey in cool water to ease the gums. The wire stays in for days, weeks, or even months, loosened and retied as the tooth begins to yield, ever so slowly to the persistent gentle pressure. You find yourself almost meditating on the passage of time, how the river keeps flowing, how the night deepens, how your jaw, at last, starts to feel a little more at ease. The wire is not always comfortable. Sometimes the healer pads it with a scrap of linen soaked in rose oil. If you are lucky, a bit of honey gets spread on your gums, sweetening the deal and keeping things gentle. The process is never rushed. You are told, kindly, that patience is the best medicine. Historians still debate whether the real goal was perfect alignment, or simply to hold the teeth steady as age and diet took their toll. You drift, hearing the whisper of the Nile outside, and wonder if anyone would notice your secret bit of gold. Maybe in the moonlight you catch your own reflection in a still pool, and see a flash that is more hopeful than glamorous. Your smile, held together with gold and good intentions, starts to feel like something to treasure, imperfections and all. The air inside the healer's chamber grows sweeter as you slide further into the world of royal dental care. For most Egyptians, gold wires were a rare privilege, but for a pharaoh, nothing was ever too gentle, too meticulous, or too elaborate when it came to preserving the royal image. Tonight you find yourself waiting behind the thick walls of a palace, the hush punctuated only by the occasional slap of sandals on polished limestone. The courtiers glide by, their mouths pressed in careful, reserved smiles, each hoping to reveal a flash of even, pearl-bright teeth should the king glance their way. If you imagine yourself in the sandals of a royal, every detail of your appearance matters. Crooked teeth might seem minor, but in Egypt's world of ritual and visual perfection, they could be a serious concern. Mainstream fact: Some of the oldest surviving skulls from royal tombs show signs of careful dental intervention, more than what is found in the average burial. It is not just about health, it is about the aura of power, the eternal impression you leave for gods, subjects, and the afterlife. The healers chosen to work on royalty are the most trusted, their hands steady, their tools polished smooth by years of use. You settle onto a cool slab, not quite a dentist chair, but close enough. The healer moves with a kind of reverent calm, every step deliberate. You are offered a sweet resin to chew, just enough to relax the jaw. There is a little joke as the healer whispers, "Smile for Osiris, he is watching." The process for fixing crooked teeth is slow and gentle, perhaps a new gold wire, expertly hidden behind the teeth, or a careful sculpting of a false tooth, polished until it shines brighter than any necklace. You feel hands cupping your chin, soft cloths laid across your chest, an acolyte fanning you to keep away both flies and nerves. A quirky detail. Sometimes the royal healers would use exotic materials, not just gold, bitumen, ivory, even pieces of rare shell. Historians have uncovered these strange dental accessories and still argue about their purpose. Were they purely decorative? Were they for the living or the dead? Or, as some scholars insist, was it simply a case of if you have it, why not use it? There are rumors of priests inventing scented mouth guards for the royal children, woven from mint and lotus petals, supposedly to calm dreams and freshen breath at the same time. Historians still debate whether any of these details ever made it outside palace walls, or if commoners only heard stories and dreamed of such gentle luxuries. The royal chamber always smells of incense, frankincense, myrrh, sometimes cinnamon, and you drift as the healer works, gold tools clicking so softly you hardly notice. The gentleness is almost theatrical. The pharaoh must never wince or complain. If the process stings, the healer hums a slow lullaby, drawing attention to the cool of the room or the flutter of linen against skin. You learn that even in this ancient world, those with power can command a level of care and pampering that borders on the ridiculous. One healer spends hours just polishing a new false tooth, so it glows in the torchlight. The results, though, are undeniable. Portraits of royal families with famously even teeth, their statues flashing smiles undimmed by time. As you finally relax into the royal chair, you realize that these elaborate procedures are not only about the afterlife or pleasing the gods, they are also about comfort, pride, and the strangely soothing idea that in this world, even something as small as a crooked tooth gets the slow, gentle attention it deserves. You close your eyes, listening to the healer's soft chant, feeling for a moment as if you too could smile in a statue's silence forever. The night deepens, and with it comes a change in the rhythm of daily life. People are drifting towards sleep, but not before tending to one last little ritual, cleaning their teeth. You are invited to join in, handed a strange-looking bundle that is not a brush, not exactly a stick, but something fragrant, soft and only slightly alarming. Egyptian toothpaste, it turns out, is not the neat white stripe you squeeze from a tube. It is a collection of powders and pastes, some so odd, you almost laugh out loud, but all chosen with a kind of slow, patient hope that maybe, just maybe, a better smile is waiting at the bottom of the bowl. You watch your healer grind spices on a stone slab, mint iris petals, salt, and for the truly adventurous, a little dried mouse tail. Mainstream fact: the Egyptians invented some of the earliest toothpastes in history, and the recipes read like a mix of spa treatment and old-school punishment. Charcoal and ashes for scrubbing, crushed rock salt for grit, a drop of honey or frankincense for a touch of sweetness, and to hide the taste of everything else. If you ever wondered what minty fresh meant in 1300 BCE, now you know.
Each family has its own recipe, passed down with a wink. It worked for my grandfather, he still had teeth at 60. A fringe tidbit, the truly fancy might add myrrh or dried flowers, hoping not just for a clean mouth, but for a pleasing scent. You pick up the pestle and join in, enjoying the slow circular rhythm as you mash everything into a coarse paste. The air fills with a sharp herbal tang, and you dip a reed or your finger into the mix. The flavor is strong and earthy, not quite what you expected, but there is a weird comfort in the familiarity of the ritual. Historians still argue whether these toothpastes did more good than harm. Some recipes included burnt eggshells or even powdered ox hooves, which could be as abrasive as they were cleansing. Yet the evidence is everywhere. Egyptian teeth were worn down, yes, but they were often remarkably free of the kind of decay seen elsewhere in the ancient world. Maybe the gritty pastes worked, maybe it was the relentless attention paid to cleaning. Or maybe the real secret was simply the nightly ritual, a moment of focus, of self-care, that gave everyone from farmhands to pharaohs a reason to pause and smile. As you get into the rhythm, you notice the quiet camaraderie. Children snicker at the strong flavors, elders give advice no one asked for, and someone inevitably complains that the mouse tail is unnecessary. The night air is cool, and the world feels slower, friendlier. A neighbor tells you that if you say a little blessing as you clean your teeth, you will dream of beautiful gardens instead of jackals chasing you through the desert. You file that away for later. Who would not want sweet dreams with sweet breath? Occasionally you catch sight of someone going a step further, mixing their paste with red ochre or a splash of wine. There is always a debate about which recipe makes the best smile, and predictably, no one agrees. The children dare each other to try the bitterest blend, and the winner, you are told, will never have a crooked tooth again. Historians naturally remain skeptical about the efficacy of competitive dental hygiene, but the laughter is real, and so is the shared sense that maybe in this small way, everyone can keep their teeth just a little bit straighter, a little bit longer. Before you know it, the paste is rinsed away, the flavors fading, and your mouth feels oddly refreshed. Maybe not minty, maybe not glamorous, but definitely awake and clean. You wonder if years from now someone will find traces of your favorite recipe between the teeth of a well-preserved mummy and try to guess the person behind the smile. You hope they get it right. A person who cared, who laughed, who let their crooked teeth remind them to savor every bite of the day. Now that your teeth are feeling, well, slightly less ancient, you are invited to try something even the gods might envy, a good old-fashioned Egyptian mouthwash. In a world without breath mints, everyone wants a little extra insurance for their smile. The sun is down, lanterns glow, and you sit by a shallow bowl as the healer prepares a rinse worthy of a pharaoh's dinner party. You might expect something clinical or harsh, but here in Egypt, even mouthwash is an act of gentle patience, blending what is practical with what is just a little magical. The first ingredient to hit the bowl is honey, thick and golden, slow to pour and sweet on the tongue. Mainstream fact: honey was prized in Egypt for its antibacterial properties, used not only for wounds, but also to keep mouths healthy. Next comes a handful of dried mint and coriander seeds, ground and steeped until the water smells as fresh as the breeze drifting off the Nile. Sometimes, for those wanting a little extra something, there is a splash of palm wine or barley beer added to the mix. You swirl the bowl and catch a whiff of something both sharp and soothing. Your healer encourages you to take a sip, swish and spit, reciting a quick sleepy blessing. May your words be as sweet as your breath. It sounds silly, but you join in anyway, the honey coating your mouth, the herbs tingling. There is a kind of gentle luxury in the process. If you close your eyes, you can almost pretend you are sharing secrets with the queen in her private garden. A quirky tidbit: some recipes called for pomegranate peel, or even the resin of acacia trees, prized for their pleasant smell and supposed power to calm wild teeth. Whether you believe it or not, it is a far cry from the harsh chemical burn of a modern rinse. Historians still argue whether these homemade washes were truly effective, or if they were just an excuse for an extra moment of quiet in the busy day. There are debates over how widespread mouth rinsing was. Was it a regular part of everyone's life, or a luxury reserved for those with time and resources? Either way, there is evidence in the tombs, traces of herbs, honey and wine found alongside dental tools, suggesting a culture that paid close attention to the details of daily care. As you rinse, you feel the sticky sweetness and the hint of wild mint. The sensation is calming, and you cannot help but smile, partly at the odd combination, partly at the idea that thousands of years ago, someone else stood exactly where you are, swishing away with the same hope for a fresher, straighter smile. There are a few extra flourishes for those who take things seriously. Some mouthwashes are mixed in silver cups, believed to purify the water even further. Others include a splash of lotus oil for fragrance, or are left out under the moonlight, said to absorb gentle power from the stars. If you are a little superstitious, you might ask your healer to bless the rinse before you use it, just to cover all your bases. As you finish, the healer tells you with a wink that if you spill a drop, the household cat will come and lick it up, and that is how cats got such fresh breath in the underworld. You chuckle, not sure if you believe it, but deciding not to risk the wrath of a ghostly feline anyway. You sit quietly, letting the flavors linger, and realize that for all its oddness, this ritual is oddly comforting. There is something timeless about caring for your smile, with ingredients pulled from the earth, sweetened with patience, and finished with a little laugh in the dark. As you dry your hands on a linen towel, the healer produces a small cloth pouch tied with colored thread. It jingles when she shakes it, a secret stash of magical protection, she claims, for nervous teeth and the people who own them. If your heart starts beating faster at the thought of another wire or rinse, you are not alone. Egyptians, ever inventive, had a gentler remedy for dental anxiety: amulets. You are invited to choose one. The table is scattered with carved stones and bits of bone, each etched with a tiny symbol. Some are shaped like smiling hippos, others look suspiciously like baby teeth. Mainstream fact: amulets were a huge part of everyday life in ancient Egypt, used for everything from warding off headaches to protecting sailors on the Nile. When it came to crooked teeth, or more honestly the fear of having them fixed, amulets promised comfort, safety, or at least a nice distraction while you waited for the pain to fade. The healer ties a small turquoise scarab around your wrist, whispering that it will bring courage. Another amulet, a tiny gold cat, tail curled, hangs from a neighbor's neck, meant to keep away the crocodile of toothache you heard about earlier. There is a faintly ridiculous story that goes with it. If you pet the cat amulet before a dental procedure, you will feel no pain, and your teeth will shift into line on their own. You grin, not sure you believe a word, but not about to pass up a little luck. Quirky details abound. For extra protection, some children wore garlands made from dried lotus petals and peppercorns, their mothers convinced that the spicy scent would keep bad spirits from tugging teeth crooked in the night. Others tucked fragments of old spells into their belts, tiny scraps of papyrus that promised to soothe nerves and straighten smiles. The healer's apprentice tells you, eyes wide, that one famous magician used to blow across the jaw 3 times before every treatment, to send the worries floating away. Historians still argue whether these customs were widespread, or more of a family superstition, passed down with bedtime stories and a wink. Tonight, it is hard not to get swept up in the charm. You press your amulet to your lips, feeling the carved stone warm in your hand, and notice how the tension in your shoulders softens. The night seems gentler, the worries less sharp. Maybe it is just the comfort of having something to hold on to, a tangible bit of hope as you wait for the slow work of healing to begin. You wander outside, amulet in hand, and catch a faint breeze coming off the river. Somewhere, a flute plays a sleepy tune, and you remember all the other tiny rituals, chanting, chewing herbs, singing softly, that have blurred the line between fear and calm for thousands of years. Tonight, your smile is guarded not just by wires or pastes, but by a whisper of magic and a heavy dose of faith in things unseen. It is a gentle reminder that sometimes the oldest solutions are the softest. You tuck the amulet under your pillow, just in case, and let the world slip further into night.
The world is utterly silent as you settle deeper into your mat, the gentle weight of your amulet resting against your chest. You have sampled every soothing ritual, every odd herbal paste and chant, but some Egyptians, especially those with truly tricky teeth, were rumored to go even further. Tonight you find yourself in a cozy lamplit room with a collection of curious objects on the table. Not just wires, not just stones, but what could only be described as ancient dentures, or at least something very close. You lean in, examining a set of teeth bound together with what looks like a strip of gold and linen. Mainstream fact: archaeologists have found several mummies whose jaws hold artificial teeth, sometimes made from carved bone, ivory, or even other human teeth. They are lashed into the gums with fine thread or wire, arranged as neatly as the healer's hands could manage. It is tempting to call these the world's first dentures, but as always, historians still argue whether these devices were meant for the living or for the afterlife. You imagine an Egyptian craftsman, perhaps a respected scribe with failing teeth, having a small hand-carved tooth slipped into place to fill a gap in his smile. He might bite down gently, getting used to the new shape, all the while hoping that no one notices the subtle difference. A quirky detail: some ancient texts mention the use of sheep's teeth as stand-ins for human ones, painted to match and polished until they gleamed. There is even one half-believable rumor about a royal concubine who requested a whole row of turquoise inlaid replacements, hoping to make her smile as dazzling as the Nile at dawn. You run your tongue across your own teeth, thinking about how this would feel. The healer assures you the fit is snug, not too tight, not too loose, and recommends eating only the softest food for a few days, maybe a mash of lentils, a bit of honeyed bread, or a sip of warm beer. For the more adventurous, there are tales of Egyptians borrowing a tooth from a recently departed relative, convinced it would carry a little of their luck into the next bite. Historians, predictably, remain unconvinced, and still debate whether any of these makeshift dentures were truly functional, or just decorative, a way to look whole and healthy for the journey into the afterlife. Tonight you play along, letting the healer gently press a carved bit of bone against your gum. You bite down softly, and there is a strange comfort in the way the new tooth fills its space, awkward but not unpleasant. The healer makes a sleepy joke: smile wide, and let the gods wonder if you are already one of them. You grin, awkward and amused. As the lamplight fades, you realize that whether these dentures were practical fixes or symbols of hope, they were born from the same gentle spirit that has guided every remedy you have tried. Egyptians did not just accept crooked or missing teeth, they found ways both strange and soothing to restore their smiles. Historians still cannot agree if these inventions were common or reserved for the elite, but the evidence whispers from every tomb, a lasting wish for wholeness, for comfort, for the soft promise of a smile that lasts beyond the end of night. You drift, gently aware of the odd weight in your mouth, and decide that for tonight the illusion is enough. Here in the hush of ancient Egypt, every crooked tooth has its place, every missing smile its quiet, hopeful stand-in. The hours slip away as you wander back outside, the moonlight painting silver ripples on the Nile. You have become something of an expert in ancient Egyptian dental care, from gold wires to mouthwash rituals, but one belief still lingers, a superstition both earnest and gently humorous. Egyptians saw teeth as more than just tools for eating or a reason to flash a grin. A crooked tooth, they believed, might actually have consequences for your place in the afterlife. You walk along the riverbank, feeling the cool sand sift through your toes, and recall a story told by a temple scribe. If your teeth were strong and orderly, you could speak clearly before the gods in the Hall of Judgment. Mainstream fact: oral health was linked, symbolically, to moral order and the power of speech. A clean, straight smile was a kind of ticket to a better eternity. Some funerary texts mention the soul needing to recite perfect words, and crooked teeth were thought to trip you up at the crucial moment, leaving you tongue-tied in the face of Osiris. A quirky detail floats up in the night air. Some wealthy Egyptians, worried about this cosmic dental exam, commissioned spells specifically to untwist their words and teeth, hoping to avoid embarrassment on the big day. One popular amulet, shaped like a little open mouth, was placed among the wrappings of the deceased. Children whispered stories about souls who had to wait in line for an afterlife dentist, getting their teeth straightened before they could join the eternal feast. You stifle a smile. Historians still argue whether these beliefs were widespread or simply the privilege of the anxious and the wealthy, but even the most somber ritual carries a note of playfulness. There is a half-remembered tale of a farmer who claimed he met a goddess in a dream. She told him that anyone with a crooked tooth should plant an onion at sunrise, then sleep with a clove of garlic under their pillow. By morning, his teeth would be straight and his breath, well, perhaps not heavenly, but certainly memorable. You think about all the little folk remedies, the charms and hopeful tricks passed from parent to child. In the land of pyramids and priests, every family seems to have a story about the afterlife and the importance of a perfect smile. Historians, as ever, still debate how deeply these beliefs shaped daily life. Were people truly frightened of facing judgment with a crooked grin, or did these stories provide comfort, a gentle nudge toward hygiene, or just a reason for an extra bedtime joke? You listen to the river and feel the way these ancient anxieties echo your own. The wish to be understood, to present your best self, to make a good impression when it matters most. Tonight you lie back and gaze at the stars, imagining the long line of souls waiting at the gates of the afterlife, each one quietly checking their teeth in a polished copper mirror. Somewhere, a scribe mutters a prayer, a healer ties an amulet, and you sense the quiet, universal hope that a gentle fix here on earth can open doors far beyond. You close your eyes, smiling to yourself, crooked teeth and all, letting the old stories wash over you, as soft and reassuring as the river's midnight lullaby. You stretch, feeling the cool night air settle deeper into your bones, and the old healer invites you back inside for a final lesson in patience. By now you have seen almost every way Egyptians nudged, cajoled, or quietly bribed their teeth into better alignment. But what about the pain? Because no matter how gentle the hand or slow the ritual, sooner or later, someone, maybe you, lets out a wince, a sigh, or an outright groan. Ancient Egyptians, ever resourceful, developed a collection of pain-soothing tricks that ranged from practical to oddly comforting, each one delivered in that same unhurried style you have come to expect. You settle into a cushion, feeling the soft fabric and the distant warmth of the embers. Mainstream fact: Ancient Egyptian medicine included a surprising variety of pain relief techniques, herbal poultices, fragrant compresses and sedative drinks, all aimed at calming the nerves and soothing the sting of stubborn teeth. Your healer's apprentice brings over a little bowl of mashed figs mixed with honey and poppy seed. Hold this against your gum, she whispers, and do not talk for a while. The pain will float away. The taste is both sweet and bitter, and you find it oddly calming, even if you are not entirely convinced of the science. There are stranger tricks too. Some Egyptians believed in meditative chanting, slow repetitive murmurs meant to lull the mind away from discomfort. A quirky detail, one family tradition involved softly humming the same melody used to scare hippos away from the riverbank, as if the sound could drive off tooth pain just as easily. If you have ever tried singing to distract yourself from a headache, you know the logic. It is part placebo, part real magic, and part just keeping busy until the ache subsides. Historians still argue about the effectiveness of these remedies. Was it the honey, the poppy, or the power of expectation that eased the pain? Did the slow, deliberate movements, rubbing a cool reed along the gum, stroking a linen cloth over the jaw, actually help, or was it the chance to relax, breathe, and trust the hands of someone who cared? There is evidence that in some cases, mild sedatives like wine or beer were used to dull sharper aches, especially before more complicated interventions like inserting a gold wire or binding a loose tooth. Yet no one rushed. The entire culture favored a slow approach, the kind that lets your body catch up to your mind, and your worries settle out with the night. You find yourself melting into the rhythm of it. The room is dark except for the steady pulse of the oil lamp, and every motion is soft rhythmic intended to calm. A healer's voice is low, almost a whisper, telling you that pain is just a visitor, never a permanent guest. Sometimes for a particularly anxious patient, they might bring in a stringed instrument, a soft plucked melody to match the gentle pressure of a compress, letting the music do as much work as the medicine. You are reminded, as you sink into the pillow, of a modern truth. Sometimes the anticipation is worse than the thing itself. Egyptians seem to know this, turning even pain relief into a ritual of comfort, patience, and trust. Historians still debate whether these methods were universally available or the luxury of the well-off, but the philosophy lingers: there is no rush. Healing, like everything else along the Nile, flows best at its own unhurried pace. With one last deep breath, you let the pain, real or imagined, float away. Tonight you have all the time in the world. You feel the healer's gentle hand squeeze your shoulder as the fire flickers low, shadows stretching along the painted walls. Tonight you have drifted through recipes, wires, chants and charms, and by now you might be wondering, did any of this really work? The Egyptians certainly thought so. But what about the evidence? The modern eyes peering into ancient mouths, hoping to find something more than wishful thinking. The story of ancient Egyptian dental care ends, as so many old stories do, with gentle debates and a few remarkable surprises. Mainstream fact: modern researchers have examined hundreds of mummies, carefully recording the state of their teeth. What they find is oddly encouraging. Many Egyptians did suffer from worn enamel and crooked teeth, no surprise, considering the gritty bread and sand-dusted diet. But surprisingly often, their teeth show signs of deliberate intervention: gold wires binding loose molars, herbal pastes still clinging to gum lines, and sometimes teeth that are remarkably straight for the era. It is not a perfect record, but it is clear that Egyptians took their smiles seriously, and sometimes their gentle fixes actually paid off. You remember your own time in the healer's chamber. That sensation of gold wires snug behind your teeth, the weird sting of cumin paste, the long patient ritual of mouthwashes and massages. None of it felt hurried or harsh.
You imagine a child in ancient Thebes, waking up to find their tooth a little less crooked, or a proud grandmother showing off her new smile at a family gathering. The small victories were real, even if the changes took months or years to appear. A quirky detail emerges. Some skulls show clear signs of healing around dental repairs, evidence that these interventions were done while the person was alive, and that against the odds their gums and bones adapted. Other discoveries are less clear. Some wires, for example, seem to have been added after death, perhaps for ritual reasons, or to present a perfect image to the gods. Historians still argue about the intent behind these posthumous fixes. Were they meant to comfort the living, honor the dead, or simply to keep the dentist's skills sharp for eternity? You find yourself smiling, not just at the results, but at the spirit behind it all. Egyptians believed in slow solutions, incremental improvement, and the quiet faith that a gentle hand could coax order from chaos, one crooked tooth at a time. Maybe that is why their influence lingers, echoing down the centuries into the braces and aligners of today. The tools are different, but the patience, the hope, and even the humor remain. You roll onto your side, feeling the soft brush of linen against your cheek. As the last lamp sputters, the healer tells you that the true measure of success was not always a perfect row of teeth, but the ability to eat, to laugh, to speak well, and to greet the sunrise without pain. It is a lesson you tuck away for tomorrow, a gentle reminder that perfection is nice, but comfort and kindness are what matter in the end. Historians still debate the finer points, of course, that is their job. But you for tonight are happy to let the ancient evidence speak quietly for itself. In Egypt, at least, even the slowest, sleepiest remedies could sometimes make all the difference in the world. The last embers glow as you let the silence settle, everything softer now. Your breath, your jaw, even the thought of crooked teeth. It is time to drift through the final memories of ancient Egypt's gentle approach, where smiles fade, but the lessons linger. You notice how the healer tucks away their tools, gold wires and linen scraps bundled neatly, as if preparing for another day's patient, another night's hope. Out in the city, the quiet is so deep, you can almost hear the Nile's heartbeat, pulsing slow and steady beneath the moon. Mainstream fact. The legacy of Egyptian dentistry did not vanish with the pharaohs. Instead, their careful, inventive methods slowly seeped into the practices of neighboring civilizations, Greeks, Romans, Persians, all picking up hints of gentle wirework, herbal pastes, and an appreciation for slow, subtle fixes. You lie there, half awake, and picture a Greek scholar poring over a borrowed papyrus, or a Roman healer tying linen around a crooked molar, quietly cursing the sand and praising the patience of their Egyptian teachers. A quirky detail floats back to you. Some travelers, visiting Egypt centuries after the pyramids were built, wrote home in awe about the people's clean teeth and odd rituals. They brush with reeds, one Roman claimed, and rinse with the sweet wine of the Nile, murmuring to their gods as they do. You smile, recognizing a story that has traveled farther than the river itself. Everywhere it goes, the gentle touch endures. Historians still argue over just how much of modern dental science can be traced to ancient Egypt, and whether later civilizations learned directly or simply stumbled onto the same ideas. But you, drifting in and out of sleep, are less concerned with academic credit than with the comfort of knowing that even thousands of years ago, people faced the same aches and worries, and found surprisingly soft, creative ways to handle them. As your mind grows heavier, the images blur. You see a line of stone statues grinning beneath the desert stars, their smiles fixed in serene confidence. You picture children giggling as they swap herbal toothpaste recipes, mothers knotting amulets for anxious sons, elders humming away a little pain in the darkness. The story is not about perfection, it is about the hope behind each gentle fix, and the quiet persistence that carried those lessons all the way to your bedside tonight. So you let the world grow dim, holding on to the tiniest thread of gold, a patient hand, a soothing chant, a bit of laughter after the pain. In the end, every crooked smile is a little legacy, proof that even the softest touch can change the world, one careful nudge at a time. Wind down, and now, with the ancient night closing in, and the Nile flowing on beyond your reach, you feel yourself drifting. Each breath is slower, the air heavier, as the world of healers and gods, and soft golden wires fades into memory. The hum of the river becomes your lullaby, steady and endless, wrapping you in a gentle cocoon of comfort. You let go of every ache, every anxious thought about crooked teeth or tomorrow's worries, and let the rhythm of old Egypt carry you away. Your jaw feels light, your body warm, the last scraps of tension unspooling until you are weightless and calm. The slow, patient wisdom of those long-ago healers still lingers, reminding you that nothing good ever needs to be rushed. Soften your gaze, loosen your shoulders, and let the silence grow. Somewhere in the quiet, you can almost hear the echo of a healer's whisper, promising that every hurt can be soothed, every crooked thing gently set right. Sleep now, and know that you are held, by story, by history, by the patient tide of time itself. Sweet dreams.